Hi, and welcome to another episode of Kuntarkis. My name is Michael Yon. This episode is called A Trip to Mars. Actually, there's several things discussed. Firstly, it starts with a trip to New York that Kuntarkis describes after having finished his gardening.
Oh, it's got to be about 2:30. I went inside. I had a shower. I went and laid down straight away, and I said, "Excuse me, everyone. I'm going to lay down for 10 or 20 minutes." I said, "I really need to lay down," so I did, and I went off to it as quick as you could say. And I had this experience with a guy by the name of Robert Morley, and I met him in Spirit World. I was very aware I had a physical body, and we were sitting in his office, which he has an office in London and an office in I think he said New York, yeah, New York City. And the office that he had in New York City is where we were sitting, and he was sitting on the other side. I described him all to Misha. Um, Something told me that I recognized him, but I couldn't place it. And he fiddles in being a director. He has done a little bit of producing. He's an actor. He's a screenplay writer, and all that type of stuff. He's apparently played in a lot of movies. Not a very good-looking man. He had really bushy eyebrows. He had um, jowls, and a sort of fattish face, half bald with greyish hair with a little bit of black in it. Overweight, and he spoke with an accent which sounded like English, like Pommy, or from UK. But he also can speak really well American, which was interesting. And he said to me, he said, Kuntarkis. He used my name, Kuntarkis, which is interesting. He said, "I know that's not your real name. You're writing under that." He said, "I've looked at your book." And he said, "You've got The Dream Assassin, Volume 1. And you've also stated in the back of it all these chapters that's going to end up as Volume 2. And I said, "That is correct." He said, "I am fascinated by the way you wrote your book, Volume 1, because," he said, "that is so rare. It used to be that way," he said, "way back when writing became a pretty big thing. But it changed because of all the publication companies, and they wanted it more simplified so they could have easier layouts and all that type of stuff, which caused a lot of issues with a lot of writers, and they gave up writing." He was explaining all this to me, but he said, "I would love the opportunity of actually buying your film, making an offer, buying your book." And I said, "Oh, right." I said, "Well, I had been looking for a literary agent, but not a lot of work, but I'm very soon finishing my latest book called The World Conspiracy." And his eyes bubbled open, really big. And he said, "World Conspiracy. That sounds like a lot of conspiracy." And I said, "Yes, it is. It's the truth. It's written on basic truth." And then he said, "Look," he said, "I tell you what," he said, "I've looked at your first book just on the internet." I said, "Right, okay, on the internet. Okay." Something just kept saying me, something's right, but something's not. And I tried to work out who he was because I knew him. And he said, "Look," he said, "we'll offer 6 million US dollars to buy both books. And that's buying the rights to the books completely." I said, "Right." And he said, "But to add an extra bonus in, because I know we're going to make lots of money," he said, "we'll give you 4.75% of all sales worldwide." So he said, "You'll make probably an extra 30 to 40 million dollars." I said, "That sounds promising." He said, "What do you think?" And I said, "I'll go for it. Yes." And he said, "Okay." He said, "I'll have a contract made up by this afternoon." And he said, "If you want to sign it, you sign it. But instantly," he said, "your Volume 1, The Dream Assassin, becomes ours today." And he said, "Volume 2, I know you've got that completed," you said, "but you haven't yet published it. So it's got to be sent to us. so it becomes ours. You will have to have a signing of a letter. I said, I understand that process. And just as he was about to make a phone call, I literally felt my energies changing. And I started to disintegrate. And he wasn't noticing me because he was trying to do something on the phone. And I suddenly dissipated and I woke up. And I said, well, that was a bit of a letdown. Wow. So I explained the whole thing to Misha, and I didn't ask her to do this, but she looked up the name, Robert Morley. Ah, you're not going to believe this. This is really wacky. Robert Morley is exactly what I said, but he is dead. He died in 1992 or 95 or something like that. He was a British actor, screenplay writer. He dabbled in production and also as a director. And he was a couple of other things, but I can't remember exactly. And he was always playing, a lot of the times, I think, the bad guy because of the way he was. And yes, he's got bushy in his photos. I saw him when he was much younger. He still had those bushy eyebrows with sort of blondish hair. But the way I saw him was when he was older, a lot more weightier, and he had really sort of black and grey bushy eyebrows, little hair on the front, but to the side, and it was exactly as I described. So he was a British actor as well as a screenplay writer, and he dabbled into movies and things like that.
Yeah.
But he's dead. So I met him in Spirit World, and he was deceased. So that was the experience.
Well, I'm happy, but I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah.
Well, that's mate. There's reasons for everything. This is something that I always say to people. It doesn't matter what happens in your life. It's what you think. The reality becomes yours. Sometimes certain experiences come together for a particular reason, and it can help you in the long run. Maybe he was put there for a particular reason, that somebody else would come into that vibration that's living and find that book and do exactly what he did. And they were introducing that to me.
Mm.
So I'm always open to all things, because if we're not, that means we'll never experience what form of reality we may desire. So we've got to be open, and we've got to see things as they are, not to be judged as negative or positive, just simply it is. And that's what I did. But the interesting factor, Michael, I was physical, because he shook my hand before I sat down in this swivel seat with a high back, light grey material. Very nice, actually, lovely armrest on it, but different to what I've seen. Maybe it's more of a director's chair, I don't know. Or maybe something like his seat. I couldn't remember his seat.
So when you say you're physical and and like you're in the spirit world, would you call physical as well?
Well, that's the interesting part, Michael, because when I shake his hand, I felt the warmth of his hand, and that is not normal when you're in spirit world. So maybe there is someone that was connected to Robert Morley in some form or some fashion. And maybe whoever that was only a representation of who truly will connect with me. So I'm open to that. But I felt the actual warmth. You know what it's like if you shake someone's hand.
Yeah.
They can have a cold hand, they can have a warm hand. And where the center of their palm is, there's a hot spot. And you feel it. So I was feeling his hot spot on his palm, but also his energy. So, and I looked at my body, and I even tapped my chest when I sat down, and I said, I'm physical. I've created that body. I'm physical.
Yeah.
So maybe this is all about something to come. And that's how I see it.
Yeah, something to come. Yeah,
It's a
for
come.
sure. Yeah,
So that was that experience.
brilliant.
Yeah, the second one was not last night, the night before. I was sitting there and having a cup of tea in the morning, and I was telling Misha about it. And I said this, and she was just telling me about an experience she had. And I said, well, yeah. She asked me, did you have one last night? I said, yeah, I did. Yeah, I said, very unusual, very enlightening. And I think you know the beings that I was with. And I described them. And she said, oh, my God. She said, that's the one that came to me when I was 19. I can't remember what she said his name was, but it started with T. And apparently in their vibration, they have a lot of names, from what I can gather, that begin with T. And one of the ones, okay, let me just go back. I remember lying in bed, and I was in with my darling, and I suddenly felt this energy formulate around my body. And I said, oh my God, I'm about to go off to it, or I'm going out of it, one of the two. And suddenly I saw myself going through the brick wall. And as I went through the brick wall, I could see sort of a shimmering energy that formulated around my entire body. And I lifted my head back and I could see something that looked like a slipstream, but it was vibrating. It wasn't a colorful one. It was just literally vibrating, but sort of clearish white. And I was being dragged on that at tremendous speed. It was guiding me. It was going in hoops around. I would go in a full circle, down, back up again, straight line. It was quite incredible, the journey. But it wasn't very long. It felt like, look, no more than, say, I reckon between 15 and maybe 25 minutes. That's how it felt. And what I saw in some parts was different planets. And some of the planets I thought I recognized. And then, let's go beyond that. Then I remember waking up and I was on a bed. The bed was as white can be. The sheet that covered my body was as white can be. It looked like satin or linen or something like that. And I remember pulling the sheet back and I sort of sat up and I looked at the bed and it was a perfect oval shape, like an egg, but that smaller point was at both ends. And it was very high. It was like about nearly a meter high off the ground as one bed. And I looked around and I said, hang on, where am I? Everything, I could feel the heat, by the way. I could feel the heat. And I was on a planet. And I could see mountains in the distance and a lot of large, I mean really massive rock formation. I could see the red dirt as clear can be. There were no grass, no bushes, no trees of any description whatsoever where I was. And suddenly I heard something like voices, and they were a completely different language. And then I could see the eyes in this cave that was just on my right. It had a big opening, but you couldn't see inside. It was as dark can be. And suddenly these beings came out. There was about 6 of them. And what it was, there were 2 of them that were my height, probably only half the size of my body. They were very thinly built, very small, narrow shoulders, no muscle structure on their body. Your upper body was shorter, but the legs were longer. And they had these clothes on, very loose, flowing clothes. The other 4, they had a long type gown on that you couldn't see their feet when they walked. And they were very, very active. They had smaller heads with almond eyes, black, and their eyes seemed to stick out, like to a point. That was really strange. Then they came out and they all had these smiles on their face. And I sat there and I just put my hand up like to say, hello. That's what I said. And they all started laughing. They said, hello, Kuntarkis. You know us. You've been with us many times, but I know you're not remembering. I said, I'm not remembering at this point. And they all walked up to me. And as I got off the bed literally vanished. I just looked at it. It just disappeared. They said, did you like the bed? That was your landing. You came on a slipstream that you call slipstream. I said, yes, I do. Yes, I do. And this one, it looked like it would have been, say, the leader. He says, my name is Torah. And I said, oh, it's very pleased to meet you, Torah. They said, would you like to come for a walk? I said, where? Just for a walk. So we all started walking. And I had 3 on one side and 3 on the other. And we were just talking about different things. And we were saying, do you know where you are? I said, I think I'm starting to know where I am, but I'm not sure. I don't believe I've ever been here. And you call it the red planet. I said, Mars. And they said, yes. I said, do you live here? And they said, no, we don't live here, but we have laboratories, research centers, deep underground. And down under the ground, there is lots of water, waterfalls. And we have homes within the caves. We can even lock off the caves when we have the cyclonic winds that come through and blow the dust so much. I said, wow, I'd love to see it. Not on this trip, but you'll come again and you'll see then. I said, okay. They said, we're going to go for a run. This is our run. It's morning here, so we're going for a run. Would you run with us? And I said, yeah, sure. So we started running, and we were running all over the place. And the soil, it was so dusty, you could see it all being kicked up, and it smelt really strong, like it had the most strongest smell. It wasn't pungent. It was a nice smell. And they said, that's the soil or Mars. And we ran up this mountain that it was pure rock, but it sort of went up long ways, and then it came down again, and then it had a flat section. And we ran all over that. And we just had fun. There was no talking, just laughter. We laughed and laughed and laughed, and I was feeling really good. I felt so excited. I said, I can't believe I'm actually on Mars. I'm on Mars, real Mars. And that's where Elon Musk wants to come. That's his first stop. He wants to come to Mars to actually put a sign on it that he owns it. That's what he wants. He wants to own Mars. Well, I don't think that will ever happen, personally. These beings are funny, full of unusual characters, but they're not weak. They're very powerful, and they're around about 10 to 11 million years old in evolution. The interesting factor is, I said, how come you know my name is Kuntarkis? And they said, we know where you mainly existed. We are friends to the Nakaron. I said, but I can't remember. No, because it's very deep within your cellular structure. It will come out because we have activated it, and you will know in time to come. So they spoke about different entities on Nakaras, which was really interesting. They don't know my father, Yarkus Kardis, so they asked me to explain, which I did in depth. And they were simply amazed. They said, so you're magical. I said, well, I am and I am not. And they asked me to explain, and I explained about the Earth's vibration. Being within this Earth's vibration, it's a very low frequency when it comes to nature. And the understanding is very negative. And the creation of its evolution has always been negative. And they fully understood what I was saying. So we ran around, played. It was just really, really, really exciting and magical. And then we started to walk back very slowly. And I said, I noticed that indentation within the planet. It goes down about, say, roughly 80 feet. And they said, yes. I said, was that one an ocean? And they said, yes. There is lots of seawater within Mars itself. Most of it dried up, but a lot of it sinks through the soil and eventually goes into a massive terrain, and that's where the water is. That is salt water. But also we have fresh water. We love to drink water, and the water is absolutely purified in where it is, and it's deep within the actual planet Mars. And I said, do you actually have like computers and all these different types of technology here? And they said, yes, we have it all set up. It has taken us over 100 years to set up. I said, do you own Mars? And they said, no. They started laughing. No, we're not into owning Mars. We have our own world, and that's where we are. But we come here to actually help. And the ones that actually got us to come here were your friends, the Nipulans, especially Unica, which was another civilization that did exactly the same thing. So it's amazing how the interconnection of some universes are just incredible. So that was basically my experience. I didn't wake up straight away. I went back exactly the same way to my bed. So that was that.
Circles and twists and up and down and straight. And you're saying you went back in the slipstream all the way back?
Yeah, but on the way back, I went pretty well straight.
Okay. Yeah,
I think they were doing that just for fun, because they're a very, very playful civilization. And as I said to you, there is no multicultural organizations on that planet that they exist on. Their beings are one species, and you're not going to believe where they come from.
Where?
You want to have any guesses?
Where they come from? Oh, nothing's coming to mind.
Where they actually, or what they actually evolved from.
Oh, what they evolved from.
Yeah, what they evolved from. This is gonna really, really make you think. They evolved from a pod, a plant, that had been evolving for nearly 3.5 million years. Nothing existed on their planet, and suddenly, out of nowhere, all these plants started to evolve. And over a very long period of time, which is about 3.5 million years, these pods began to grow from being smaller to much larger. And eventually, what came forth from a pod was a being, very similar to what they are now. But that's what they evolved from. They evolved from the consciousness that was created by the spirit of the planet through these pods. That's how life came into existence as them. And they evolved up now nearly 10 to 11 million years later. They're very high in technology. Their planet is protected 100%, and it was the Nicaron that actually helped protect them, because they are vulnerable if they were by themselves. Even though they have weapons to their own manufacturing, they would probably not survive. But their spaceships now are a lot more advanced. And apparently the next time that I go there, which could be in 1 day's time or 20 years, I don't know. But they have a ship there that's part of their major ship, which is invisible, by the way, all the time. It's big and it's invisible. So if anybody takes photos of the planet, all you'll see is the planet and its structure. That's how they hide. The other thing is, they're going to take me on a tour of Mars to different centers all around Mars that are identical to the ones that they live in up there. And they're going to take me on what is called, it's like a spaceship, but it has no top. You sit like sitting in a bus and going on a tour, and you literally fly over the entire planet. Yeah, so that's something that I'll be looking forward to, but also seeing all their technology.
Yeah, for sure. So for them, it's habitable. It's not too
Yep.
hot or the lack of oxygen or whatever else.
They don't feel the heat like we do, mate, because we carry a lot of extra fat cellular cells, and fat cellular cells hold heat. And because of the negativity that exists on this planet, which not many people would want to admit, they would just laugh at it, it's real, that itself combusts more into heat. And that causes us to be sensitive to heat, where they don't have the emotions that we do. They are not a multicultural. They are a single entity that literally evolved. Basically, like say, if you're looking at say 11 million years, you've got to go back about say 7 million, or between 7 and 8 million, because they evolved over 3.5 million years into a species.
From a
But that's how
plant, basically from a plant.
from a plant, a pod,
Wow.
yeah, a pod,
Yeah.
and the pods get to a certain size, and they showed me the pod, by the way. They showed me just like a little a viewer, and they showed what the pods look like, and they showed the pod actually having a seam, and the seam suddenly bursts open, and the pod literally just comes down. The plant leans it so it literally sits flat on the ground, and when the pod opens, there is a being. Nothing like they are now, but similar, and it evolves. Just like creatures that come out of the ocean with no legs,
So
and they grow legs.
what about reproducing now?
They produce normally. They have certain types of genitals that actually produce their offspring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Because,
fantastic.
originally we come from a Neanderthal. Neanderthal was a creature like gorillas, like gorillas were, and monkeys and all that type of stuff. The Asian race was created from gorillas also, through alien DNA and chimp and gorillas and baboons and all that. So it's amazing what evolution can actually do naturally.
Hmm.
So my first real trip to Mars.
Mars. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's really exciting. That's really cool. Yeah. Bucket. Yeah.
Yeah.
To tick that off.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm still. I'm every so often. The last day and a half or 2 days, I've been really thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot.
Did you know that there's a species of, I guess I could basically say monkey that would eat the leaves of a mango tree, which are poisonous, and then they figured out that they can eat charcoal, and the charcoal can balance out the poison that they've eaten?
Well, yes, I believe that.
Yeah, how cool is that?
Well, you could do the same thing.
I'm a little
You could eat.
smarter because I know about it, but the fact that they figured it out is pretty clever.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, monkeys on one island and monkeys on another island, and they learned how to smash coconuts and things like that. On whatever. So, and the funny thing is, from a conscious level, the monkeys on the other island followed without even knowing what they were doing, because it's all about consciousness. Because everything is energy, and energy is everything. And this is something we scientists, the people, have to really come to comprehend that is reality.
Yeah, lines of energy.
Yep.
Yeah, same as the mice that learn to not go one particular way in a maze, and then their offspring do the same thing. They're like, oh, we'll go this way instead.
Exactly.
Fascinating.
And the funny thing is, Michael, we are limited because we are limited beings. And that limitation's been placed upon us, and we now are so highly conditioned, we end up believing that we can't do certain things because it's not natural or we're limited. But it's us who have limited ourselves. I believe that everything, it doesn't matter what it is, I believe everything is possible. Everything. I mean, Christ, if I went back 20 years ago, I wouldn't say that because I wouldn't have experienced the things that I've experienced over the last 20 years. And they've been phenomenal. I mean, Christ, traveling to Shikani, a planet that I actually created a force field well over 300,000 years ago. And then traveling to a universe that doesn't have a planet. But the universe is impenetrable. You can't get in unless they allow it. No matter what you do to it. You can bombard it for 1,000 years with lasers and everything, but you would not get in because these beings are seventh dimensional and you wouldn't even see it. You would literally fly straight through it, not even knowing where you are, because consciously we haven't evolved, or whoever it may be. So everything is possible. We have to change the way we think.
Mm-hmm. I listened to our first ever recording, the two of us back in 2005.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I didn't listen to all of it, but one of the things you said, it was you said something like, I know you want to focus on a goal, like what goal to focus on, but you said something like, learn to be, what did you say? Learn to hold whatever it is in mind in the present. You know what I mean?
Yes.
For it to be in the present. That's the way it's going to come about.
Hold your thoughts in the present moment.
Yeah.
If you hold your thoughts in the present moment, you can then make it a reality if you choose to.
Mm.
If you choose to.
Yeah, very good. So it's 20 years for us that we've known each other now.
20 years, mate.
Yeah, 2005, 2025.
It's like a speck in the ocean, isn't
It is, yeah.
Right? Like a speck in the ocean.
Wow, yeah.
Yes. No, I'm as a being, I find that, how would I put this? I find the reality that we live here, I find the reality that we each live in is only limited because we are limited by our thought patterns. And they have been imposed upon us through our parents' genetics and their parents' genetics and their parents' genetics. What we have to do is open a door that leads to the void where it is empty. It's a nothingness. So we can literally go beyond what we are. And we are so highly conditioned. And we need to break that conditioning. We need to step out of our comfort zone.
Right, and I guess it just starts with starting.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
I mean, a person can change their thoughts in any way that they want to start with.
They can, absolutely, and they've got to believe it. If they believe it and they do change it, then things in their life will start to change. Of course, it's going to be slow because look how long we have existed from lifetime to lifetime in our own conditioning, how we slaughtered each other so violently in all the 157,000 wars that we created. Over 19 billion people have been slaughtered because of that conditioning. War is something that has been accepted on a planet that we're supposed to be all brothers and sisters. And here we are battling ever since we were created. Ever since we came into existence, we have done nothing but battle violent wars. And it's easy to prove it. Teach yourself how to go back into the Acacia records or into the nothingness or into the void and actually bring out fragments of what you want to see, and eventually you will, because if you believe strong enough, you'll create those fragments from the past into your reality, and suddenly you'll see things that you have never seen, and you'll suddenly say, oh my God, that's what took place on this earth all those years ago. If people knew who created the First World War and the Second World War, because it's so close to us in history, they would be horrified. If people knew that wars were created simply to make money worldwide for whatever reason, they would start to really see the reality of what human life is all about. War is crap because we kill to satisfy our human egos of what governments are telling us. And that is wrong. I said something to Misha just before when we were sitting down. I was having a glass of kombucha, and just before I left, and I said to her, I said, you know the funny thing about reality? And she said, yes. I said, the funny thing is, we create reality by the power of our thinking. And yet the reality that we create seems to always have negative repercussions. Why? Because it's the way we've been conditioned to think. And if we don't recognize that, we will constantly, throughout every single lifetime, create exactly the same things in a negative situation, just different circumstances, different entities in our life. When I mean different entities, I'm talking about the wheel of life, where one lifetime we're the father, next lifetime we're the mother, next lifetime we're the baby, the son, the daughter, or the grandson, whatever. So we constantly keep the same patterns going in life because we don't know anything better. We're not aware of how we can change it. And yet we can. We're governed by violence, which is negative, not by the positive aspects of life.
Yeah, yeah. And like where we are is perfect for our learning, but really it doesn't mean that we're learning. We're just stuck in it, aren't we? Stuck in the wheel.
Absolutely, mate. We're stuck in a certain position on that wheel, and we keep reliving the same form of life, just different circumstances. And that's what we've been doing for 928,000 years. And since humanity has had a history of over 41 million years, 41 million, with hundreds of different alien civilizations coming to this planet, there are so many species within us all from different aliens that have had existences. They have had what they call that word where you join together, like husband and wife, or you have intimacy with someone, you have a child, half alien, half human, even though you look human. That follows through our patterns in our evolution. So all of us have alien DNA to some degree, especially with Nikaron, because of the 87,000 that were placed here 928,000 years ago on this planet to sort out their life, their existence, because they didn't want to change. And do you know the funny thing about that? I went back and checked in my cellular cells to find out something. And I saw everything day by day. There was a city that was built. The walls weren't built. And they were placed into the city because they didn't want to change. They didn't want to grow beyond what they were. They weren't violent like so much on this earth, but they caused a lot of issues, thieving, all that type of stuff. A few bashings, that type of stuff. But they're the ones that asked for all the equipment and supplies, and they built a massive wall that was like 20 foot tall right around their entire city.
This is in Nakaris.
On Munehars, yes, in a certain location. And they all existed within that. And over the years, it became so much that there were 87,000, over 87,000 of them. Even though that's a small proportion compared to what the Chiron civilization is, which is now over 40 billion, which is incredible. But if we aren't willing to change, we have to make a decision of what we want to do to change. If we live in a relationship that is so negative, causing so much pain, and nothing ever changes, we have to make that decision to get out. Because inside of us, there is something like a light that's shining, that's vibrating, that wants us to grow beyond what we have been. And if somebody does that and moves out and starts to grow, future children to that person will suddenly change for the better. And that's really important. So we all have to make a decision sometimes in our existence, and I did it. So everyone can, no matter who we are, for the betterment not only of ourselves, but meeting someone that is similar to what we want in life. Happiness, joy, balance, love. But there's one big issue, and I've always stated this, and I know it's reality. You will never ever find love, pure love, in anything or anyone else unless you discover that essence of love within yourself first. And when you discover that love, and it just makes you shine so brightly, you will attract from an energy level the same form of love that will become so balanced. And the children that you create will be more balanced than normal. The only thing that sets children off today is because there are so many unbalanced families, so you have unbalanced children, because the energies have never changed. That's the issue. We have to change what has been conditioned within us.
Right. And then a lot of families and beings on other planets, they'll continue to do the best for their children and so on, because that's the future of their race, right?
Absolutely, 100%. And they do, mate. I can only name a few, and I can name the Doricans. I can name Cadiz race on the planet called Uplata. I can't still pronounce their name. It's so long. It starts with A, but it's so long. I will find it again and try and see if I can remember it. But also the Ilias on the planet Taurus, the Nakarons on Nakaris. Who else? There are a couple. Oh yeah, the Munehars. The Munehars are one of the most balanced races in the universe. They really are, and the way they live is so amazing. And we've spoken about this. But how they live, they don't live like us here and build cities which house so many people, and all the farms are on the outside. And none of us know what's happening with the farms because the governments are telling them to spray everything with poison toxins continuously. So everything we eat, we're putting in tons and tons of poison toxins that have been sprayed on our fruits, our vegetables, everything. And the taste is nothing like it used to be. But on their planet, Very interesting. The Munehars, when they build something, they build their city around the center of a massive rainforest that's either established or they build first. And they build that city, and every single Munehar, they help look after what's there. And all their veggies, their fruits, their nuts, their berries, their legumes, they're all grown there. And they can just go in every day themselves. No one says you can't do that, because there's no such thing as greed, hate, anger, violence in their civilization, because they've dealt with all of that and it's gone. And what they have now is pure, unconditional love for all of life. Yes, they've had to fight, but luckily they have their planet protected. So they don't have to fight. They can just allow them to bomb the planet as much as they want, and they're safe. So that's the beauty. So they can just go to these rainforests and say, take a rock melon, or take a watermelon, or take some nuts or berries or whatever. Go home, go in the playground, grab your kids, and go home and have your food. And it's all natural food. It's not sitting in some warehouse for the next 12 months before you get it in Woolworths or Coles.
And their kids are already extremely balanced as soon as they're born.
Oh, they're gorgeous. Yeah, they're gorgeous. Yeah. Gorgeous kids, mate. They really are. They're so, how would you say, so well mannered. They'll help anyone. The kids. Yeah, can I help you? And that's what they'll say. And they don't talk like we do. We swear and we carry on, and we stuff alcohol down our throats. We stick bloody drugs and smokes and everything else down our body, and all this type of stuff. We're violent in the way we communicate and talk. It's really sad that that's the way we are, because we're not growing consciously. We're not growing in awareness to become self-aware. We're continuing our karma from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. And that is the reality of what truth truly is.
Mm. Is this the planet that you're going to be there for 5 days at the end of this year?
Yep.
Yeah. Have you figured out how that might actually work?
Nope.
You believe it'll happen, but how feasible it'll be, because you're probably going to have a physical body still here on Earth. I guess. Not maybe not.
Not, mate. I tell you the reason why. When I was taken, especially, not just to the seventh dimensional beings, and then I was physical, my body was still back in bed. But when I went last night, I really questioned myself so much that, am I here? Really here? I mean, I didn't go for a pee or anything like that. I didn't get the feeling to want to go for a pee. But I was physical. Just like when I was with this guy yesterday afternoon, with this guy called Robert Morley, the actor, and the screenplay writer and all the rest. I'm shaking his hand really through me, feeling the warmth in his hand. That's not natural. So I'm questioning a lot, but I'm not becoming emotional about it. I'm accepting what
Good, yeah, because Yakis Kardis would already have it completely figured out, most likely. It's not for you to worry about.
No, not at all. Not at all. But I am looking forward to that, spending time on that planet.
Oh,
yes.
Gosh, what a perfect holiday.
Oh, mate, I'm looking so forward to going through their rainforests where all their food is. I'm not joking. It's incredible. I've seen visions. I've had visions placed upon me because I've actually had them visit me a long time ago, and I've seen it. So it'll be interesting. Very, very interesting.
Yeah, well, what's their relationship to Earth?
Nothing really, mate.
Yeah.
They're there to help. They'll help if they can, but they don't believe in helping a planet that won't help themselves.
Totally.
Yeah, that's their philosophy. You know, well, the Nicarons spent hundreds of thousands of years in space watching over Earth, and people would say, how could they do that? Well, they just have different ships coming and taking other ones home, and new ones coming. You know, different times. And that's how they were. They were very concerned because they were looking after their own people too, the 87,000. They know how evolution is, and they also wanted to actually see what the changes would be. Yeah, so it can be a very complicated situation, but an easy complication at the same time.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
This concludes another episode of Kuntarkis. If you'd like to find out more about Kuntarkis, find his website, which is etcconsciousness.com. He has articles there, he has his books listed there, and also if you have any reason to contact us in general for any reason, just email kuntarkis@gmail.com. That's it for now. Thanks so much for listening. My name is Michael Yon, and stay tuned for more.